Hey now, welcome to the dirty side of the track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. We're happy you're here. Today we went down under to the Austrian Grand Prix. Rob, how you doing, man? That
Oh
joke never
gosh,
gets old for me. Never gets old.
I knew that once you dropped your shrimp on the Barbie gag in your predictions. I was like, oh
Oh,
gosh, it's going to
God.
be one of those. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm doing good. I mean, somehow we've both managed to watch the race and bits of the race weekend this weekend, as we both had quite crazy weekends. I spent the last what feels like 300 years at a swimming pool. It's amazing. Swim meets have this amazing ability to sort of slow down time. They're in this little time vacuum where you know that on the outside world, only eight hours have gone by, but inside the bubble, oh wow, it takes forever. But I need to give a shout out because we have a listener from the world of the swimming
oh,
world.
well, hello.
Um, he's an official, Luis. He listens. He's got tickets to Canada. He's been many times.
Oh,
We just sort of randomly caught up at some swim meet. I think it might have been the Valtteri hat. I'm not sure. We just got chatting, and he's a big F1 fan. So I told him at the podcast, and I bumped into him this weekend while he was doing his officiating duties. He's much more generous with his time than I am. I time every now and again, but I couldn't be an official weekend. So anyway, shout out Luis. Thank you for listening. Good to see you again this weekend. And somehow I managed to grab a little bit of time to watch the race on repeat. Didn't watch it live,
right.
but managed to see it. Anyway, you had a crazy weekend as well.
Yeah, it was fine. I ended up going to New York. I decided to cross the George Washington Bridge at negative 3 miles an hour twice, and that was fantastic. Yeah, I watched it on the plane. I paid for the Wi-Fi so that I could watch it on my YouTube TV. I'd already paid the $4 so I could download it, but YouTube TV decided that like 4 hours after the race was too soon to download it, and so it was grayed out and said this isn't available yet. I'm like, thanks. So I paid $12 to watch 57 of the 70 laps on the plane, and then I had to finish it when I got home.
Yay! Well,
Yay!
so that's enough of us moaning. For any regular listeners, any new listeners, same old playbook as we have here. We will hit the news and social and see what caught our eye this week. Brian will open up the video vault and see what videos he ended up watching. Then we'll review the race weekend as we managed to see it, and then we'll preview Silverstone, which is like just the best race in the world ever.
I actually thought
Um,
Austria
and
was really good, but we'll get to
yeah,
that.
we'll get to that. Come on, keep your powder dry, Brian. Keep your powder dry.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
so let's just jump in, shall we? So, I mean, this first story is a little boring on face value. It's a
I'm
whole
going to let
bunch
you
of
cover it because I saw this and ignored it. So this is all
yeah,
you, brother.
and I'll tell you why I'm covering it. So, for the first time ever in the history of Formula One, since the dawn of time when cars were racing dinosaurs, for the first time they have released these stewards penalty guidelines, and it's like I don't know. There was one page shown on the post I picked this up from. I'm imagining this is one of many pages that basically has almost like every offence, which article it relates to, uh, how you judge it in free practice, qualifying in the race, and extenuating circumstances, and it's this whole menu system of how stewards should do penalties. And this is why I'm bringing this up. On one side of the coin, it's brilliant transparency from the organization. George Russell applauded it and said it's great to see, it's kind of this dark art that we don't really know how they arrive at penalties, and now we can see it. Okay, great, move on. But
But
one thing the establishment has forgotten is the keyboard warriors out there. You have now given them factual evidence that when something happens on track that they don't believe 100% aligns to one of these guidelines, they're just going to be out in force going, well, excuse me, but I don't know why that was a 5-second penalty because according to bylaw 72.567, it's like, oh, no, you've unleashed a monster, I think, FIA. So I applaud you, or whoever released it. I'm not sure it was FIA driven or just stewards, but whatever it was, I applaud you for your attempt at transparency, but I think you've unleashed a monster.
I guess we'll find out. I will be curious if people start going back in time because I know some of these have changed, right? 5 seconds to 10 seconds, and the number of penalty points given on someone's license. But there's a consistency part to it that, regardless of what people think, needs to be applied. And so I'm fine if they give us the chart or not. I'm fine if they use it, perfectly or not. as long as whatever they do use is a consistent approach. So
Yeah.
they don't have to follow the chart, but if every time someone does an unsafe rejoin and it's during the race and they just keep doing a 5-second penalty or whatever it is on here, just keep giving it to everyone the same. That's all I'm looking for is consistency.
Yep. Another thing that might be consistent, what a
Oh,
segue,
God.
is the FIA president, because maybe we're not going to have anybody run against him. Carlos Sainz Sr. has announced that he will not be running for
I don't
FIA
know if
president.
Susie was listening last week when we urged her to reinforce her campaign that maybe other people hoisted upon her. Please, Susie, we need you. Without Carlos Sainz Sr., we're just stuck with Mohammed Ben Sulayem. So please, Susie, reconsider. Or consider, I guess, maybe for the first time. Consider it.
And then this one is a bit of a strange one. I've looked at this story from two different angles. One as a, that's a bit sad, and one from a cynical, old man, cynical view as well. So Checo was being interviewed, and I don't even know where I picked this up from. But he's been interviewed.
I saw it too, a bunch.
And they said, going over his time at Red Bull, and he was talking about giving away some of the inside things that happened. He said, look, things really started falling apart after Newey and Wheatley left the team in kind of quick succession. He's also heard from that Red Bull now regret letting him leave, and his quote was, "I know that deep down they are very sorry, and I know this from a very good source. And people might think I'm happy about it, but no, we had a great team, and in the end, it fell apart little by little." I don't know what the backdrop was to why they were asking about this, whether it's the Cadillac seat looming in the distance and they're just trying to get Checo being relevant again and sort of get him into the public eye. But I wasn't quite sure to take this, whether it was a... like, we beat up on Checo a lot. We did.
And you know
But
what?
we've also
Maybe
now
a little
seen like
unfairly
100
at the
drivers...
end.
Well, I was going to say, now we've seen like 100 drivers go through that seat and not do any better. So I don't know whether this is... I don't know. What did you make of it? Is it am I being cynical, kind of thing, making him this is a little bit of sort of sour grapes on his part? That it's kind of like, oh yeah, they regret letting me go.
I mean, it's one of those things where you want to think you're super important. Whatever you do, whatever job you have, you want to think they can't do it without me. If I quit tomorrow, boy, they'd be sorry. They let me go, and boy, it hasn't gotten any better. They therefore must be sorry, is what it feels a lot like. And do you think Helmut Marko cares at all? Not a bit. Not a single bit. And I don't think Horner cares. I don't think anybody cares. Now, if you ask them honestly, do you think they would say it's been any better? That losing Checo and going to Liam and then to Yuki has been any kind of an upgrade? I don't think they'd say it has been either. So in some point, I think Checo's looking at it and going, well, see, no one else can do it either. But do you really think any of them feel sorry? I just don't.
Like I say, I don't know if it was just like if somebody had come in and really smashed it in the second seat.
Right.
I think his stock would have fallen ahead of a potential Cadillac
Correct.
move because they would have gone, well, look what Liam did in the same car,
Yeah.
Checo. Now he can I think it's the shop window type thing saying, well, look, no one's done any better in that seat.
Exactly.
It's obviously the car, not the driver. Give me a chance, Cadillac. I'm your man.
It's just the sorry part. I kept seeing that. I know that deep down they're very sorry. Do you? If you do, can you also...
a very good source.
Yeah, also let me know next week's lottery numbers. Speaking
You
of...
mentioned Helmut. You mentioned Helmut.
did.
And the guy is not going to be around forever. And there is some rather exciting news. I got way too excited reading this. Because it has all been rumor mill to start with, but now it has come out of the mouth of the man himself. Sebastian Vettel has revealed that he has spoken with Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko about potentially succeeding him in his position at some point in the future. Vettel has acknowledged that he could potentially return one day, having talks with Marko about succeeding him when the 82-year-old decides to retire. Yeah, man.
That is pretty cool.
Vettel in charge of Red Bull, basically. That would be amazing.
That would totally be amazing. Totally. And you know what? I still think Seb has one of the more interesting driver arcs in the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, let's say. 20. He has to go over 20 because it was, when he won the first one, 2010. So let's say over the last 20 years, 25, has anyone had a more interesting arc? Maybe Fernando, the peaks and valleys of Fernando's career, but Seb was... So many people didn't like Seb when he was winning championships.
I'd name three people that have all got almost identical arcs as Seb. So you've got three people that were hated when they were winning everything and being brilliant. Michael Schumacher, Fernando Alonso, Seb Vettel. Then they mellowed and came back in other teams where they weren't at the front anymore. Schumacher at Mercedes, Alonso now at Aston Martin, and Vettel towards the end of his career at Aston Martin. When suddenly they took this elder statesman role on, and everyone loved them all of a sudden. It's basically comes down to when you're absolutely brilliant and you are brutal in your efficiency and win races, people can't stand you. And when you come back as a more lovable character where you're not winning all the time, people see the real you and start loving you again. I think all three of those did that very similar.
I agree,
I
but
think Max will probably on that. Max will hit that at some point if he stays in F1.
when he joins Mercedes next year and the car stinks and everyone loves him. But Lewis doesn't have that, I don't think.
No, but you've got to remember, and as much as I hate the thing that swirls around all the time in F1 about British bias, you also would be naive if you didn't acknowledge that the the huge amount of British interest in Formula One and the fact that Sky Sports runs the whole show in terms of broadcast feed and everybody's British that commentates on it basically. He's the homeboy. Boy did good. Boy was winning. We loved it when he dominated. So he never went through the hate cycle. Now he might have done from other press,
Sure.
but all I've ever exposed to was the British press. So do you think we hated on Lewis when he was winning stuff? No.
I guess. I don't know. It's just fascinating. But anyway, it'll be fascinating to see if Seb does follow up Helmet. And let's talk a little bit about things that follow up amazing things. Let's talk about movies that came out that followed up other amazing movies from directors. Let's talk about videos and open video videos. I have one non F1 the movie video. Just one. I don't know if you guys are aware, the F1 movie dropped. Rob and I were in Canada. We didn't see any advertising for it at all. None. No commercials throughout the entire weekend, all the time. No signage, no nothing. So non-F1 the movie, Russell and Kimi take on the Ultimate Team Trivia Challenge. It Takes Two on the Formula One channel. They've been doing these with a variety of teams so far. I loved it. It's that little insight into drivers that we will never get as fans unless they come on the podcast like Valtteri did. It's those little insights you just don't get. But when you watch these guys working together, I loved it. I loved George's Georgeness and like the wanted to understand the rules, wanted to understand if he answers first and second. I got it. And like he was all being George. And Kimi, though, who's a little more of an unknown, he was so competitive. He was hounding for one final point. But this point, but he kept pointing at the paper. But what about this point? I loved it. And yes, he hosed it up this weekend. We'll talk about that in a second. But it actually made me even more excited for the Kimi Antonelli era. That he is that kind of like not leaving a scrap on the table, taking everything that he can get. Loved it. Did you see this by any chance or no?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, watch it. And then the other two that I highlight behind the scenes, F1 Driver Briefing, F1 The Movie, and then we're shifting gears into the F1 channel movie prep, was a fun little peek behind the scenes and a time capsule because it was before the first time they went on track for the movie, and it was 2 years ago. And so you saw a lot of drivers of yesteryear, if you will, in the driver briefing room, and that was kind of a neat little time capsule as they thanked them and said, we'll stay out of the way and so forth. But then we shift into high gear. We had Brad Pitt and Damson Idris argue over the internet's biggest debates, agree to disagree on the Lad Bible channel. 10 minutes. Loved this. So if you're getting ready for the movie, there's about 4,000 YouTubes out there of these guys on 4,000 different places. The one to watch, because I've watched probably 3,000 of the 4,000. The one to watch is this one on the Lad Bible. So much fun. Just the two actors, talking with each other. As they, launched this movie. And then I saw the F1 movie on Thursday night. It was brilliant. I won't give any spoilers here because I know it's early. We'll wait a week or two and maybe to critique it. But I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. And it is, I say it's a follow-up. It's kind of like what comes next. Top Gun Maverick, I thought, was just an excellent movie from the same director who did the F1 movie. And it felt kind of like the character arc that he tried to build with Maverick. It was a similar idea with Sonny Hayes, with Brad Pitt. And it was just made you care. You made you care about the character.
I think I'm going to watch it tomorrow with my wife. Hopefully my kids have both got swim practice at the same time and my son can drive them so we can sneak off and watch the movie. But are you Are you saying that at some point Sonny Hayes shouts through the team radio,
We got the
"I've
Need
got
for Speed.
tone, I've got tone."
Got the Need for Speed. Smoke in the air. No, I will just say it is one of those like character development movies that is phenomenal.
Sorry, I forgot to say this in the shout out at the beginning when I was talking about swimming. So the swim meet was held at Wesleyan University, and while I was walking the halls of Wesleyan University Athletic Centre, being very very bored, waiting for the next round of swimming to start, I happened across a hallway that had all the pictures of all their previous sports teams, and I found my way to the mid 90s. And I
You were
think it was
very
19,
bored.
I think at 1995, I found the Wesleyan University college football team photo. And there on the front row was friend of the show, hopefully to come back on soon, Mark Schofield.
Get
And
out
there
of
he
here.
was. Yeah, that's where he went to university, and he played for the team. So that was a nice little moment. I kind of took a picture of that and posted it on Threads, and that helped pass at least 30 seconds of the 50,000 years I was there this weekend. But anyway, so I'm going to go and watch the movie tomorrow, hopefully, and then we can do some sort of review soon. So
Let's close the
um,
vault and then
close the
move
vault,
on
I
to the
think.
weekend.
Yep.
So again, sort of, I don't know, not apologies, but just recognizing Rob and I didn't have the normal time we have for FP1, FP2, FP3
I did
quality
no,
race.
I did watch practice live on Friday, so I'm okay
Okay.
for this bit.
Well,
This bit I'm okay
this
for.
this
For this
portion,
bit,
this portion, we will act like we know what we're talking about.
yeah. So I mean, there were some fascinating moments in FP1, and Paul trashes all over practice because he's boring. But I'm sorry, we had reserve drivers in action, people I've never heard of before, but doing well. Alexander Dunn in the McLaren finished fourth in free practice one, which I think is a great result for a rookie. And Dino Beganovic for Ferrari. But that's not what I want to highlight in free practice one. No, 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 no. In free practice one, the cameras panned to Lando Norris on the pit wall. And Crofty, wait, was it Crofty? He wasn't here for this weekend, was he?
No, Harry
Didn't do the
Benjamin.
race coverage. So, okay, somebody else was all ready to do this. They must have got this whole thing ready of this is like well, maybe it's like Lightning McQueen with Doc Hudson, or it's whoever. This is Lando alongside Andreas, and he's going to be showing him all the stuff and the telemetry, and Lando's going to get this amazing insight of what it's like to be on the pit wall. It's going to be amazing. Just as he's about to launch into this, Andreas spilt his water bottle all over Lando. It fell on the floor. He had to recover it from under the pit lane wall. And what happened was the next few minutes was a whole commentary on could Andreas get his water bottle out from underneath the pit wall where it had landed and rolled under. That was part one. Part two was he then wiped down Lando's seat and Lando with a papaya cloth. I mean, these guys have thought of everything to be on brand, right? Not only have they got all of their sponsors and
Unbelievable.
everything, but even the stuff they wipe things up with is papaya. So
That's the
yeah,
kind of insight you can't get on other F1 podcasts.
you can't. I mean, I would imagine the whole host of F1 podcasts won't have even mentioned that moment.
I
So
agree.
now, my interest may have waned for FP2 because literally the only note I wrote was, oh my gosh, Lance Stroll finished fourth and Bortoletto finished eighth. That was it. But in hindsight, Bortoletto observation was amazing foreshadowing. So I think I am a
Was.
genius.
Well,
Yeah.
what about the Lance Stroll finished fourth part? Moving on.
Bortoletto finished eighth, which I think is fantastic foreshadowing too. And then there's a little bit of a snafu here where I didn't see any of FP3 other than to quickly look at the results and see that McLaren's were quick. That's all I got.
I
Apparently
did see the
McLaren's were
McLarens
quick.
were quick. That's all I saw. And then boarded a plane.
Now, I did watch qualy, but not live. I watched that in between the swim sessions on Saturday, and I think when you watch it, and you obviously don't know the race results because you're obviously watching it before the race. That's kind of how it happens. You look at things and you think, oh, I mean, it's going to sting. Hulkenberg finishing 20th. I'm like, oh man, you just might not even bother turning up for Sunday because you're 20th and that's it, done. That would have been a stupid observation had I made that. But anyway.
Well,
and
hold
then
on.
you got
Then you got Carlos 19th.
Carlos 19th. We'll talk about him a little bit in a bit. Yuki. Oh, Yuki.
What is going on there, man?
I don't know. And then Ocon and Stroll. So really, Sainz and Hulkenberg are probably the shocks, which is stupid because we got a Red Bull in 18th, but that's bizarrely not a shock now. So we lost those guys. Q2. Now, all the usual suspects went really, I think. I don't think, other than one that I'll give a shout out to in a minute, Alonso, Albon, Hadjar, Colapinto, and Behrman. So you look at those five and you think, yeah, that's a pretty normal Q2
Yeah.
elimination, maybe. But what that meant was, as I looked down the board and thought, right, who's going to get pole here, is my eyes were fixated on one driver, Bortoletto. I think it's his first Q3 appearance.
Yep.
Oh, he had a brilliant weekend, and we'll get there. But I'm
I,
looking down that list of who's in the top 10, and that one just stuck out for me of like, huh, okay.
what about Liam
I mean,
qualifying
Liam.
sixth?
Well, now you're jumping ahead to the results of Q3, but that's
Well, I mean, the fact that Bortoletto made Q3 is great, but he finished eighth. What about Liam finishing
mm.
sixth?
Now Q3 is a little microcosm of foreshadowing a lot of things that happened in the race, which is, and this is not to take anything away from any driver and any lap they put in, because Lando's pole lap was absolutely immense. But a whole heap of people missed out on their second run because of things happening. So Verstappen ended up qualifying seventh, but his what would have been his fast run or his second run got compromised by, I think, Gasly yellow flag. I think that also hosed up Piastri. So there were a few drivers. This not everybody got to do their second run, so it kind of messed things up. And I'm going to come back to that later in the race because I really enjoyed the race, but I also feel really, really cheated that we lost maybe an epic race because of just stuff that happens that just unfortunately happens from time to time. But anyway, yes, Lando nails it. Brilliant pole. Chuck Leclerc goes and sticks it up on second. I
I,
mean,
I thought that was when I saw the quali. I thought that was Charles just putting a amazing lap together, and that it may not be symbolic of the actual Ferrari pace. I know Lewis was fourth, so it's not like Lewis was 10th, but it just felt like maybe they have quality pace, but are they going to have race pace? Nah, the upgrades aren't going to give them that. I just, for some reason, I was negative. I was not an optimist when it came to Ferrari, no matter what Charles did. So I was, I don't know. We'll talk more about the race in a second, very
yeah,
soon. But it was a unique set of just kind of people going two by two, teams going two by two. It felt like a Noah's Ark race where it was like teammates next to each other for most of the time.
yeah. So then my final notes for quali was here is just like Bortoletto, Lawson beating Max, Gasman hoses up a whole bunch of final runs, and then the one thing that we forgot was the grass on fire, which I don't think we've seen since Japan. Was it Japan where they kept
Well,
the grass kept just
maybe, but China
igniting?
definitely had the problem.
Oh, China. It could have been China. But yeah, they had, I think Lewis ran wide and set fire to the grass, and they had to red flag it and go and dampen the grass down. So there we are. That was the grid. And we all sat down waiting for lights out and away we go. And for 19 of them, away they went. And one man sat there, going nowhere.
So I'm watching this utterly confused. I was waiting for a message similar to, I believe it was Australia, where we.
Like a massive torque delivery, I don't know.
I didn't know what he was going to come across with, and I was confused because the marshals were touching the car, and I always thought that was like the cardinal sin no to have anyone touch your car, and they were pushing him forward. And I'm like, aren't you done? Isn't that a DNS at this point? Did not start?
No,
And
I think for the start you're okay.
I think apparently you are because he
If you
still took off and
started
came
then you
around.
stop, yeah. If you started then you stop, they're not allowed to like. Was it Brazil where Hulk got
Hulk, exactly, where he was
Yeah,
teeter-tottering, and they gave him a little
yeah.
push, and then all of a sudden he's out. So I thought he was toast, and then he goes around and he lines up in the pit lane, and the whole rear of the car just catches fire. Like the brakes were like, "Boy, I'm hot," and the rest of the car is like, "You know what? I'd like to be hot too," and like it just snowballed from there.
Right. Funniest thing was the radio message where Carlos is kind of like, I really can't get any drive. You know what? And no one was coming back with anything. So he sort of asked again and was like, any suggestions? And you just could tell the Williams pit crew had got zero clue as to what the problem was. And the poor guy just had to come on and kind of go, we're just thinking of options. I mean, that was just one away from like, turn it off and turn it on again. I mean, it was, they, They had not got a clue what had gone wrong in that car. I mean, Williams had a weekend to forget.
Oh
So
my gosh! But I'd like to welcome Carlos to the Brian Zapperstein fantasy team this week for the first time. That started great, and by started I mean did not start great.
so then we finally got going, and oh my word, the whether you want to call it team spirit, team play, whatever. Norris absolutely slammed the door shut on Charles.
It's like
And
he'd been
basically,
watching a Max video. Like, how does Max do it when he has pole and someone's coming up the inside? Just run him off the track?
yeah, well, he just closed the door and basically landed an amazing move where he did two things at the same time. Slammed the door in Charles's face and opened a door for Oscar and went, "Here you go, fella, jump through that one." And Oscar didn't need inviting. Boom, straight through. McLaren 1-2 by the first corner. And I was like, oh man, that was nice. And we were all ready for that kind of. It's such a short lap. It goes round so fast. There's all those kind of like corners that just feed into each other, where it's important to get more traction out of the corner as opposed to taking speed in. You're kind of getting all ready. Before you know it, there's carnage. And we've got cars out, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's safety car. What's going on? And at first, they weren't quite sure what happened. It's George. No, it's Antonelli. Antonelli's out, and we see a picture of Antonelli with his front wheels missing. And then, I do feel sorry for Kimi, because the moment they realised who Kimi had taken out,
Oh yeah.
no one cared about Kimi being out anymore.
Well, and so I'm desperately watching the replays, and as they keep showing it, and I'm rewinding it. That's the one good part about not watching live. It's literally it. Is like, all right, I'm 5 hours behind on a plane going halfway across the country. No one's gonna know if I take an extra couple seconds and keep rewinding to watch it again and again and again. First of all, he's coming down the outside. He makes a wild man move to the inside because the people in front of him are braking. I think he thought he could pass them? Question? Like, that was a bad move. Like, that's, if smooth is fast, that was slow because it was like yank wheel right, yank wheel left. Pass everyone at 20 times their speed, and then he's like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to slow down for this corner on the inside now, aren't I? Lock up from hell, and he just slides straight in like Valtteri at Hungary with the bowling ball move. I'm just gonna take out everybody. Here I come, wee! And he hits Max. And exactly like you say, when they realized it was Max, you're like, oh god, no. And Kimi's wheel is like his front left is off. It's just hanging there. Max's car, when you first saw it happen, I'm like, oh, he just got spun. Maybe he can get started again. Nope, there they are talking as they walk through the gravel. Oh, man.
The funniest thing was that, like you say, right? Kimi just did this big lunge up the inside. Like, what are all these idiots braking for? And then he had that split second realization. Oh, they're braking for a corner.
Right. Now I'm on the inside of it, too. So it's not like I'm on the outside where I can take my extra speed and go off around the outside. He's like, no, I'm not going to make this.
But to be fair, they cleared that up pretty quickly. Safety car came out. Lap 3, it's ending, and off we go again.
Can we just clean up the Kimi thing? Because this happened
Oh.
afterwards. He got a
Yeah,
three-place grid drop for Silverstone.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
I
So,
didn't see that.
and I think
Okay.
that's in a couple penalty points. Now, I don't know if that matches your chart that you put in the notes question, but I mean, I gotta say, I think that's kind of deserved because while he didn't like intentionally run into Max like Max did to George, he definitely did not have control of his car.
No, agree. And then once the safety car ends at lap 3, I think we then go on to about 14 laps of just brilliant racing.
Oh, amazing!
Across like the front four. So first off, we had Russell, Lewis, and Charles. It felt like we had 3 side by side for about 100 corners, and eventually Lewis held on to it. And Lewis, he positioned his car well, and Russell came on the radio very quickly to start moaning about how Lewis closed the door on him. I'm like, yeah, he did, but in a way that's completely allowed.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. It's called playing
you know,
defense.
Shut up, George.
Yeah, he was a great defender, and he got his car in between you and where you wanted to go, and tough. I almost said something else. That was great, but, and there's a lot more we'll talk about in these laps. But up to lap 20, from this point on, Oscar and Lando gave us the Papaya Fest we'd been waiting for the whole season. We started seeing it in Canada. And then we know what happened because Rob and I were there. It happened in front of our eyes when Lando ran into Oscar on lap 66 or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden we have it again. We have these two guys battling. And I would say it was amazing to watch.
Oh, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And it made me realize that what we were kind of robbed of during Max's domination was the fact that his teammate wasn't good enough. So when you have a car that is obviously good, if only one of the drivers can maximize it, then we got into a bit of a snoo fest of Max being away by the others. Only 3 or 4 laps after the restart, Lando and Oscar were already over 3 seconds ahead of Charles.
Yes.
I mean,
But
McLaren's
still
dominated
fighting.
this weekend, but still fighting. So
Yeah.
they are still going hammer and tong, not tripping over each other, but almost tripping over each other, which in theory is always slower because they always say whenever
Right.
cars are battling, everybody behind catches up. But these two are rocket ships,
Ruining their
3.5
tires.
seconds clear of Charles. But they are just going at it, and it was just brilliant. I think it was lap 11 when Piastri took Norris, but the way that Austria is laid out, he took him, but then that instantly gives Lando the DRS down the next straight, and Norris got him, and they were just two brilliant drivers at the top of their racecraft, getting very, very close together, but never really. Well, we'll come to Piastri's lockup in a bit, but
Yeah.
never really looking like they were going to take each other out.
No.
I think this is the essence of Papaya rules. Let them race, but keep it clean, and it was just brilliant.
And so a couple things. Obviously, they're both super talented because you can't race someone like that fair but clean without trusting the other driver and knowing they're talented enough to do it. I hate to say this, but you're not going to see that ever happen with Lance Stroll because he's going to make a mistake somewhere in there and take you out. Sorry, Lance. Sorry for running you over with the stray there. But you're just not. And the fact that they could do that and Lando didn't bottle it, Oscar kept bringing it. The other cars went into tire management mode, and we started seeing, as I said, the Noah's Ark thing where the Ferraris dropped back, everyone else kept dropping back. And these two, instead of being slowed down, they were pushing so hard to stay ahead of each other or catch up to each other that they actually, like you say, extended their lead while battling. And you talk about Max not having a foil, a teammate to battle with. It's hard also because so many times you have two cars that are great, and you may have two great drivers, but you have a clear number one. And I'm thinking of Mercedes with Lewis and Valtteri just recently, where Valtteri knows that, he wins a lot of races. He's in the top, 6 all-time in podiums. I mean, he's got a great resume, and he should get a Cadillac drive too. But my point is, it was always Lewis number one. It was always for Lewis. And yeah, Valtteri finished second in the championship a couple times. But when you have, quote, two number ones, and you have this battle, I loved it. Like, you let it go because you can't really favor one of them without undoing your entire apple cart. So, anyway, I just loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
and we'll get to lap 20 in a second because that wasn't the only racing, right? I mean, we had Albon and Gasly, and you watched them going back and forth. And just Gasly, then his tires, he started on the softs, they started to drop off. Bortoletto, but it was a battle to get past him. I loved the whole thing. Every time they turned on a different corner, there was a different overtake being done by someone else in the midfield or even at the back of the grid.
Yeah, no, agree. And then up at around lap 15, Oscar was smart but wasn't smart all at the same time. He came into turn one and decided not to put a move on Lando because I think he knew that I'm actually better served staying close and staying in his DRS. The only problem was he got so close to Lando, then he realized, oh no, I'm not going to do an overtake here. I'm going to keep close. But he got so close and he had to back off that then when he got around the next corner, he was never within kind of striking distance of Lando. So it's kind of like, okay. And then it's quite interesting where they were talking about it on the TV, kind of like the two pit lanes kind of against each other, and they came on and they were. I love the way they referred to it. It's like you're the same team, but the radio message is something like to Lando from his engineer is, you need to hit the apex tighter in turn 6. Stop the other car getting clean air. just say Oscar. We know it's your teammate, but it's like no, the other car. Just keep the other car behind you. And then around about here somewhere, Albon got told to retire the car because of reasons. They never actually said the reasons. It was just stuff they'd seen, I think.
Yeah,
That was
I think
just like, yeah.
Carlos's car, they may have diagnosed what went wrong there and seen something. I don't know. But
don't know,
obviously
yeah.
a weekend to forget for Williams. And then the next lap, Yuki Tsunoda with the Stevie Wonder move on Stroll, where Stroll's just on the outside letting everybody past. He's like, yeah, I'm having a bear claw over here in my car. I'm just doing my own thing. And Yuki's like, oh, I'll take the spot. And as he passes him, he bumps wheels with him. I'm like, come on, Yuki. You could pass cleaner than that. You just bumped into Stroll, who was giving you the position, giving you space, and he still hit him. And Lance is in the car like, come on, man. That's the way I sort of envisioned that one going down. So, and it was the beginning of a bad weekend for Yuki, like the beginning of the race that was poor for him was that. And it just got worse from there. And Stroll, to his credit, was the only driver in the bottom who finished the race who we really didn't see the rest of the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure we ever saw Liam Lawson. We'll come back to him at the
end
of
the
the race.
We saw a bunch of Lawson.
Apparently, he was in the race today, but
we saw more Lawson than Stroll. But all right.
Well, I don't know. We actually saw Stroll get hit. So, but
true.
Anyway, then we get to lap 20, and this is where. So there are a number of events over the course of this race which just held it back from being epic. It was good race today. It goes into a bit of a lull in a bit when we get into the middle, but this is issue number one. Piastri gets two. We keep going on about how he's got the killer instinct and maybe he's the guy that's going to be going to win the title because of it. Then he goes and makes not rookie mistake, but we're coming up to the first pit window. We know that Lando's going to get priority because he's in front.
Yep.
And I don't know whether this was desperation or not, but he goes for that dive bomb down the inside, which A, is never going to happen. B, if it goes wrong, you've just repeated what Lando did to you in Canada, and maybe you're both out. C, he flat spots his tyre. So when Lando then does pit, and now Piastri's got clean air to try to maximise it, he actually can't because he's ruined his own chances of eating into it. So this is kind of like moment number one that eventually robs us from like an epic end to this race. And this is quite early on, but I do think that had Piastri kept his powder dry a little bit there, and not flat spotted the tyre, he could maybe have run for maybe 2, 3, 4 laps more to really get a tyre offset against Lando. He would have probably still pitted and come out behind him, but I think it would have helped his race out. I think that flat spot completely screwed him at this early stage.
I agree. Actually, I had a little problem with the commentary team. I watched the Sky Sports, and so I had Harry and Karun and Bernie. Thank you. I don't know why I went blank. So I'm watching and listening to them. And first off, every time the McLarens got close, Karun would interrupt people and go, watch this, watch this. Yeah. You see, I'll watch this if you're the color man on the thing. I like Karun. I think he does a great job. I thought he felt like a rookie. It was like they put us in there. And you see, hey, guys, watch this, guys. Watch. No, say something better than that. Here comes some McLaren action down the inside. Give me something different than watch this. He said it at least 4 times. And I was like, Second, when Oscar watched Lando box, I was sure Oscar would box the next lap. Because to your point, either you box the next lap and stay close, in my uneducated opinion, or you go for the offset you describe. And you knew he flat spotted the tire. He said it immediately. And then they came on and they said, do you want to box now and stay close in dirty air? Or do you want to wait and drop back a little and, see what you can do for a few laps and then, give yourself a little more space? He goes, I'll drop back. And Bernie goes, I think he should have boxed immediately, which is what I was yelling from seat 32D of United's flight out of LaGuardia. And they're like, would you like a stroopwafel? I'm like, no, I'd like Oscar to box immediately. And so I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why you would prefer to be back maybe 4 seconds behind Lando, which is what they'd even said on the radio, so you have cleaner air, you don't ruin your tires. Or, to your point, stay out longer, build that offset, have fresher tires, attack him towards the end of the next stint. Great. But it was like, again, a McLaren straddle where it's like, well, we're not going to really do either of those things. We're kind of just do a little bit of both and screw it on both sides. And so he was 5 seconds back with no tire offset. I'm like, well, that didn't really work. And then when Crash Pinto runs him off the track and costs him a second and a half there.
No, whoa. Now you've jumped ahead.
I'm just saying Oscar lost time. Oscar lost time throughout this race that could have been valuable towards the end. And this straddle strategy was part of it. I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
I say we'll get there. So,
but by the way, that battle was dope. Those 20 laps or 17 laps after the safety, phenomenal.
And then not a lot was really happening at the front, so we had to, thankfully, where we might have traditionally written lull because it was all tyre management. No. The midfield decided to kick into gear and start giving us something to watch. We had lap 30. Gasly just basically came out and said, I've got no grip. I'm about to skid on every corner.
I thought he was going to say, I got to retire the car next. He was like so dire as he came up with these messages.
Then Tsunoda hits Colapinto and sends him for a 360.
Stevie Wonder out there again with another move. And again, this time, though, Colapinto didn't give him the space that Stroll had given him. Well, Colapinto kind of closed it, but he didn't see him. You could see it on board.
They showed it on the onboard. He opened up the steering wheel. And they were saying, like, Colapinto gave him room. And
he did.
Yuki just knocked him round again. He was like, yeah, I just want to be on TV this weekend, so this is the way I'm going to do it.
It was bumper cars. It was like me driving Austria on the F1 game is what Yuki was doing out there. It's like, well, I can make the corner and take the spot if I bump off the car. If I bounce off the car. And it did not work, and Colapinto spun. 10-second penalty, and I think it was pretty well deserved.
Yeah, and he went off. Tsunoda went off to the pits for a new front wing. I mean, just literally everything just went wrong. Gasly on lap 37 came back on the radio and just went, look, I think my car might be broken.
Yeah, can we retire this car? It's hot out here. Can we retire this thing today?
I just want to go and sit up on the hill and watch the race. Tsunoda got lapped as well, so we're only 37 laps in to a 70-lap race, and he's done. Ajar, which we didn't really see too much of. He didn't have a brilliant race, but he put a great move on Colapinto. And then we had Piastri starting to eat into Lando's lead a little bit. It's, a little bit. But then it kind of sort of ignited all of a sudden. Norris got shafted by markers, and the way the pit lane is constructed is that you can take that last corner and claim the apex, but if you know that you're pitting, you're kind of easing off the throttle at the same time to then feed into the pit lane. And Norris was right up behind whoever. I didn't take a note here of who it was, but back marker, he's going to get out of my way. I'm going to breeze past him. But he didn't, because he pulled right and went into the pit lane. That took a whole second out of Lando's lead over Oscar. I'm like, hang on, this might be back on. We might be, what was looking like it was just going to be a, right, boys, bring this home to the end now. You're like 4.5 seconds clear. Let's just do a McLaren 1-2. I was like, this might get spicy. And we haven't talked about anybody else because everyone else, like you said, it was Noah's Ark kind of 2x2, although Mercedes had lost one. But we had George was 20 seconds behind Hamilton at this point, and the two Ferraris were just in limbo because they were, lap 47, Leclerc 13 seconds behind Piastri, and just ahead of Hamilton, and Hamilton was 26 seconds ahead of Bortoletto at the time, who was in P5. I mean, Ferrari were just having their own little
race. Doing their own thing. Race. And I'm going to jump ahead a tiny bit because I don't know if we're going to talk about it then. But when we get to the second pit stops and Lewis is still out there and he's third at this point, and they're like, hey, Lewis, time to box. He goes, I don't want to. I don't want to come in. It's like a kid when his mom's yelling out the window, it's time to come in from the basketball court. And he's like, nah, I don't want to go home. And they're like, come, box. He goes, no, I don't want to. These tires are fine. Leave me out. Box. And then all of a sudden you see him boxing. You're like, oh, I guess he lost that battle.
Yeah, and I actually thought, again, we'll name check Antonia again, where she was sort of saying, look, Ferrari engineers just need to be more firm, and the view that they're giving is the view, and the drivers shouldn't.
Yeah, but they did say that. They said this is the optimal way to finish the race. They did say that to him. But yeah, he did keep moaning for a while.
He did keep moaning. He really did. I mean, he had a little go off at turn 3. He'd gone off
lap 48,
and managed to catch it.
We were on board on the nose cam for that. That was fascinating because I'm watching it like, whoa, where are we going?
And that kind of sort of took us into, like you said, Hamilton pitted. It was lap 50 when he came in, despite going on about it. Lap 52, we got the cryptic Lando, this is the Germany situation. I was like, what? So, like, my mind's flashing back to like World Wars or something. I was like,
Me
what's
too. I'm
going
like,
on? Okay.
when was the last time we raced in Germany? And I'm like trying to think. I'm like, huh?
I don't even know what it meant, but they both came in and pitted one lap after another, and they both did good stops. So it was like, okay, this is a race to the end now, and it was getting close until number two thing happens that screws the pooch. Uh, Colapinto, for whatever reason, and whether we've got another Stevie Wonder here and just didn't see him. Norris is cutting through the back markers. Piastri is right behind him going through. Colapinto is like, yeah, I'm just going to run you off the road into the
But
grass, Oscar. I
Colapinto,
don't
who was
think he saw him. I
Colapinto
don't think he saw
battling?
him.
He was battling
Was it
Yuki.
Alonso?
Alonso, maybe it's Alonso. They were battling each other, and Colapinto goes for the pass. And then they come out of the corner. Colapinto kind of overshoots the corner. And he's like, well, I'm going to get in Yuki's or Alonso's slipstream. Doesn't know where Oscar is. He's only the championship leader. He's battling for second. He's the guy you have to get out of the way for. He's all the blue flags you're seeing.
You see those blue flags
They're on your
everywhere?
dashboard. They're all over the sides of the course from the marshals. And he's like, nah, I don't notice him. I'm just going to run him right off the road. Oscar kept his cool really well. Because I mean, holy crap! I'm watching this yelling like, "What are you doing, my friend?"
Oh, I know, and that was the second. Again, no one did it on purpose. It's just one of those racing incidents that happened. But when you stack all of these together, this is another part that robbed us of an epic chase down, or watching the Papaya rules all over again, or in order to make a really, as you'll have seen the episode title, a shoehorn into the Jaws title, the Papaya Laws. That's what we're going to call them now because it works better for the episode art. It just robbed us because that cost a crucial second. That lost Oscar a second, and we're at lap 57. And if he's 2 seconds behind with 13 laps to go, that's very different to 3. Anyway, Colapinto gets a 5-second penalty. Not that Oscar cares about that. Hulkenberg puts a great pass on Hadjar to get up to 9th, and he started 20th, and he's
20th.
9th. So,
it's a good thing he showed up, even though you thought he shouldn't.
I know.
And it's a good thing Carlos showed up to start from 19th in DNS on my fantasy team. DNS. Okay, and then my favorite radio of the weekend, and I don't have it yet. I will, though. Lando asking for some pace. Where can I get some pace? And he's clearly saying, where do I need to perform better? Because Oscar's catching me. Is it the straights? Is it top speed? Is it corners? Am I missing an apex? Tell me what I'm doing wrong to get more pace. And then he ends it with, please help.
Please send help.
He's like, where am I losing pace? Please help.
Because despite all of this things that conspired against Oscar, he's now got it back down to 1.7 seconds at this point. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got 8 laps, and this is going to be absolutely cinema for the last 8 laps. But then we get, again, tail of the back markers. We have Bortoletto battling Alonso, really pushing hard. I'm like, Bortoletto, what are you doing? You are 8th. You, or whatever you are, you're on course for your first ever Formula One points, and you are trying to send it up the inside of wily old Fernando Alonso with like 3 laps left. Like, seriously, dude, just bring it home in 8th and get your first points. But again, a bit like the earlier one and the battling going on, I think it was it that Norris came through, and then Alonso tried to unlap himself, and everything all then got in the way of Oscar, and they all got caught up in that, and blue flags weren't observed again, and that was it then. I mean, there was just Oscar ran wide trying to avoid what was going on. It was like, oh man, it just felt like I really enjoyed this race. I really enjoyed the first 15, 20 laps. I really enjoyed the midfield battles that were going on the end in the middle part. And I really enjoyed the way it was building to a crescendo. But I do kind of feel a little bit robbed of. I would love to have seen the last 10 laps be Oscar and Lando going at it like they did for the first 15. Yeah. And there's nobody really did anything wrong. Nobody can do anything. I mean, Lando definitely did nothing wrong despite asking for help. And, hats off to him for converting Paul to a win. And the 2 McLaren boys absolutely dominated this weekend. But I did feel, I was left with that, oh man, what could have been if it hadn't been for back markers not paying attention or...
Well, I loved
whatever.
the Bortoleto Fernando battle. I loved it, even though it did hose up us getting, at least add to the, it decreased the chances of us getting the battle you wanted at the end, that I wanted at the end. Okay, that's fine. It was still a great battle, and Bortoleto and Alonso were leaving it all out there. His manager, quite frankly, 2 cars that are, back markers anyway, even though they're battling for 7th. Here's the downer. They were battling for 7th, and they got lapped. And this is I mentioned this recently, I think it was Canada. We have very few cars on the lead lap. And I'm not going to complain about the overall thing. I know I'm at a wonderful restaurant, and I'm moaning about there's not enough ice in the water. But when only 30% of the cars finish on the lead lap, you're going to have back markers. You're going to have things like this happen.
It's always going to happen in Austria. It's only like 100 meters long.
But it happened in Canada. It wasn't 30. It was a little more, like 40%. But when there's not enough cars on the lead lap.
Canada and Austria, look down the history, they're always like that.
I know.
It's just the way the tracks are. Those 2 tracks lend themselves to, for whatever reason, a high amount of lapping going on. So, basically, suck it up, Buttercup, and just get on with it. Stop moaning.
I'm done. But it was a great race. And as we said, there were some amazing performances as we like to close it. Lando won, Oscar, and then Charles from his own little Ferrari race finished 3rd. Behind him, Lewis. So we had 2 McLaren, 2 Ferrari. We had George by himself, all by myself. And then Liam with finishing 6th where he qualified, which was awesome. Fernando, then Bortoleto finishing 8th where he qualified, which is awesome. As you said already, Nico gaining 11 spots, finishing 9th. And then the Haas boys, we had 2 Sauber in a row, 2 Haas in a row. And then it just 2 Williams in the garage. And so it was an interesting race. I enjoyed it too. I agree it could have been even better, but I still thought there was something to enjoy pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. It was one of those ones where it's not going to make it into my probably top 5 races of the season when we finish all of this, but it definitely isn't going to be down the bottom either. It was a good, solid Formula One race with lots to be enjoyed. Just a little bit of a regret over what might have been. But anyway, beggars can't be choosers. It was a great opening battle. It would have been great if it could have been flipped in inverse, that we finished with that battle rather than started with it. But hats off to the McLaren boys. Great one too. What do we want to do? Do we want to do King of the Pits and the Pits?
Let's do it.
Hey, you're the king of the pits.
All right, I'm going to give you a minute to think, and I'm going to go first because this one is easy for me. You could go Bortoleto. Didn't he win Driver of the Day? Like, good for him. It's Oscar. It's Oscar because... Oh, no, Lando. Excuse me. Wrong McLaren Boyd. Hello. Can you tell I haven't slept much in the last week? It was Lando, clearly, because he started on pole, and he didn't bottle it. And he had a teammate in the same machinery who we all think is great on his trumpet for 20 laps, no mistakes. And, yeah, he went off a little wide coming into the home straight at one point later on, but he didn't set a foot wrong. And even later, when he had to pass back markers and he looks and Oscar's hunting him down again, didn't make a mistake. Now, it did help that Max qualified poorly and was out of the race, which feels like Lando's kryptonite. But I give it to Lando because you can't ask for more from a weekend and a race out of a driver.
Yeah, and I would absolutely give it to Lando as well if it wasn't for Nico Hülkenberg going from 20th to 9th. We're going to have many, many opportunities to give it to the McLaren boys, and I just don't see many opportunities to give it to the Sauber boys at all. So I'm going to celebrate Hülkenberg when he's done something like that and gone from, 20th. I was just thinking, just pack it up. Just have a weekend off. Just tell him you don't want to race and you've got the flu or something. But 20th to 9th, I think that's one heck of a drive from the Hulk. And again, honourable mention for Bortoleto because getting his first points is just brilliant.
It was a good drive. He had a great drive. Maybe a little too aggressive when the blue flags were going, but that's okay. We'll talk about the pits.
You're the pits.
Roberts, you go first on this one because I'm going to bring it home with a controversial take.
Oh, okay. I'm giving it to Yuki.
Okay, fascinating.
It just bad race. He's struggling in that car, and today the only way that he thought that he could avoid just being dumped on for struggling in the car was just to crash into people instead, and just have a just downright awful race weekend. Just the whole weekend stunk the place out. Qualified poorly, raced poorly, ruined other people's races for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, unfortunately, sorry Yuki, I love you, but yeah, I'm going Yuki.
All right, so I'm going to take a second here to explain why it's not Yuki. You know, when you were in high school or university and you were dating that person and you're like, yeah, this is great, this is working out, but there's like that little thing in the back of your mind that's like, something's wrong here. And it takes you a number of dates to realize, yeah, this is not going to work at all. This person's a serial killer. It takes you a little while to figure that out. I was with Ted Kravitz for the first time in forever when he finally said, it's not the driver, it's the car. And he said, it's not Yuki, it's not Liam, it's not Checo. And he went, it's the car. And it is the car. And therefore, I'm giving the pits to Adrian Newey. For the first time, right, Rob, make as many faces as you like. That car, designed by, with the fingerprints of Adrian F. Newey all over it, is undrivable by anyone not named Max Verstappen. And Yuki's pathetic weekend isn't due to him, it's due to the car, and the car is due to Adrian Newey.
Oh, please, sir, I didn't do my homework because the dog ate it. What an absolute cop-out of not... I can't blame the guy that's actually pushing the pedals and steering the wheel. Oh, my God.
I've never agreed with Ted before.
Even if that Red Bull is terrible, it should not be qualifying 18th, and it should not be finishing basically dead last. In anyone's hands. I'm sorry.
Yuki was faster than his teammates at VCAR. But anyway, all right. Well, agree to disagree with you. Let's see what Paul has to say.
What an awful smell. That stinks.
Wait, is this a smell-o-vision Zoom? Let's hear from Paul. Paul, thank you for sending us this review.
Hey, no. Oh, sorry, just sat up. That's a thing called age. I think you're both probably quite used to that one. But that was the Grand Prix of Austria. And I'm going to start with, not shocking news, as I didn't watch any of Friday. Double shocking news, I didn't watch any of Saturday. I was at the Linkin Park Wembley show, so I didn't see any of that. And that's, yeah. So I actually had no idea who qualified where either, which is quite funky. Like, I never had a situation where I don't actually know who's qualified anywhere. Obviously, I knew Lando was pole. Quite surprised by the starting grid. I'm quite surprised he bought Bortoletto. Fair play, and you guys probably think I hate Sauber. I don't hate Sauber. I want them to do really well. And it looked like they'd actually, whether it was a lucky lap or whatever, that would play out on the race, which has just happened, which obviously I now know the result of, so I guess all this is a little bit pointless. Anyway, let's just go to the race. Red Bull. Let's start there. Now, let's be honest. I'm not gonna go anti-Red Bull, but I think he found out today a little bit why Red Bull have got a problem with this car and their driver situation. Because once again, and I think they touched on this on commentary as well, it isn't the driver, it's the car that is the problem with Red Bull. They got
toenails.
Extraordinary.
I didn't hear
good.
this before.
That. But they've basically got a car that no one else can drive. I know I've said this, it's broken record, but if you look at, I don't know, whether Ricciardo, Perez, Kvyat,
Paul's toenails,
Gasly, Albon, Lawson, now Tsunoda, that's just seems to be like virtually in the last 10 years we've had these drivers. Probably not Mark Webber, that's probably pushing it a little bit, but either way, you get the picture. None of these drivers are bad drivers. They've proved it again today. I thought today, again, I'm going to skirt back and forward, race to not race. Liam Lawson, fantastic. Yes. The kid's got talent. We know he's got talent. We know Yuki's good. We know Yuki's got talent. You almost, if you're a Red Bull driver and they come knocking on your door, you just need to say, no, I want to stay at the junior team because... so they lost him. They lost Max on the second corner. Spare a thought for the Orange Army who have travelled all the way from Holland to Austria to see their driver last for 2 corners. I'm not going to hate on Antonelli. He's a young driver and he'll learn. That was a howling ever though. Again, but you know, he's a bit like Lando last week or a couple of weeks ago. He put his hands up and apologised. So, and I think that's all you can do in that situation. It's super high charge. None of these guys do any of this stuff on purpose. No one's going to crash into someone on purpose. It just doesn't happen. So it was a bad mistake. And I think there'll be further punishment for Kimi on that. You know, but I mean, I'm going to just cross back on something very quickly here. And yeah, we'll see. The reason I'm going to cross back is the pure irony of this is that you've got a guy who's made his first really, let's say, proper mistake that's resulted in another guy being taken out of a race. Now, again, I quite rightfully think there's probably a grid penalty coming his way because it was a silly move. But you have to remember that in Barcelona, where Max actually drove on purpose into the side of George Russell, okay, he didn't make them retire, but it was pretty rough. So Max is involved in this one, and I just think the pure irony then of Kimi getting a grid penalty would be mad when you consider both incidents in the fact that Max didn't. And again, I don't want to see penalties dished out. I'm not going to dwell on that one again, but let's see. Hopefully Kimi avoids it. Hopefully he just gets a decent slap on the wrist, in lines. Maybe grounded, maybe his Nintendo Switch taken off him or something. Whatever they do to kids nowadays, I don't know. We'll wait and see how that pans out. Apart from that, the race, it was exciting the first few laps with Oscar and Lando going for it. That was quite good, but it's quite interesting how fast those cars are. Now, I can't moan because I was working with Mercedes when we were doing this, and we had, both guys just driving into the distance, occasionally fighting each other. But it was good to see. It was good to see them racing. Oscar made a pretty brave move that flat spotted his tyre. Look, I think I said last week there's going to be issues where they're getting into each other and they're like, going to clip each other and so on and so forth. That for me was a bit... Oscar's more clever than that. I think it was a bit... Obviously nothing happened from it, so I don't think there's anything to worry too much about, but... Yeah, and then it sort of fizzled. You had like 2 McLarens driving around, and then you had 2 Ferraris driving around. I know Lewis was a bit moany at the second pit stop, but I mean, I don't know. Look, it's that's one of them. It's easy for Lewis in the car to say, yeah, maybe keep him out. Yeah, look, maybe keep him out. What they're going to lose? Would Lewis have held position over Leclerc? I don't think he would have done. So it's a nice, safe thing. It's a great points haul for Ferrari, And again, you got to remember by that stage, they know Kim is out the race. Mercedes is second in the championship. They know Max is out the race. They know Red Bull are not scoring. So for them, it's almost like, well, let's just take a decent haul of points, pack our bags, and then... get out of Austria. So I don't actually blame them for that. You've got to remember the longer game, the team game here. So I don't have a massive thing with Ferrari on that. George just went round. Mercedes, as usual, struggling in heat, whatever. But yeah, just drove around, largely uneventful. And then there's loads of little sub-battles beyond, which, like I've said, were quite exciting. Again, credit to Sauber. I think, I don't know who's got driver of the day. I don't care. It's an irrelevant thing, but, I'd like to think Paul Soletto would do that. It's fantastic. Fair play to them. Great strategy as well. I know, I've been overly critical of the strategy when we were there. So it was good to see them actually get maximum out of what they could by getting Nico up there as well. So I think Sauber do deserve a bit of a special mention on that one. But yeah, apart from that, Williams, day to forget. Alpine, my God. And again, it goes back to comments I've made over the past years, where these small teams, you've got to hoover up the pieces when they come along, and when you've got one Mercedes, one Red Bull out of the race, you've got to fight for every position. Lovely to see Bortoletto and Alonso going for it. Yeah, I won't lie, it wasn't breathtaking. I'm going to say that. Was it? Yeah, it wasn't breathtaking. But yeah, it also wasn't awful. Anyway, we go next week to the greatest circuit on the
Sounds just like
calendar.
you.
Home of me, and only 5 miles up the road from me. I don't plan to go, which is fantastic. I plan to be as far away as possible. But let's end this one by sparing thoughts for people. Let's spare a thought for, like I've said, the Orange Army travelled all the way down, and they see Max last for, well, I'll be honest with you, 2 laps, because for some reason Carlos didn't let the handbrake off his car. It doesn't have a handbrake, for anyone who thinks that that's actually what happened. It was purely technical. Imagine some listeners, probably sat there thinking, really? Got a handbrake? Anyway, so yeah, spare a thought for the Orange Army. I think spare a thought for Red Bull. They've been so good over the last years, and to lose Max and then just see. It's traumatic to see Yuki struggle. I love Yuki. So spare a thought for Red Bull. Spare a thought for Yuki. When it gets, on top of things, he then has a 10-second penalty. Spare a thought, I guess, for Alpine. God, come on, guys. You got to bear in mind they're a championship-winning team still. They'll get there. They'll pull it round, I'm sure. So we're sparing a thought there. Oh, spare a thought for Kimi. Again, detention. And then finally, of course, spare a thought for the Satman, who, 2 weeks on from the death of drinking, the death of being able to maintain a healthy round and maintain a healthy.
See, if I'd heard this,
drinking level,
I would cut it off.
So we're sparing a thought for a lot of people. Silverstone, British Grand Prix, I can't wait. But Austria, you've been average, beautiful country. Average race. Move on. See you later, guys. Rob, open up another beer. Satmar won't. He'll still be finishing his Sprite. Bye-bye.
I don't even know where to start with that. Had I listened to it, man, I would have made sure the last 30 seconds didn't exist. That said, I do agree with Paul. It ain't the driver, it's the car. We both came to the same place at the same time about the same girl that we're dating. Too many red flags.
Do need to pick Paul up on something though. He's like trying to paint this picture that the second Red Bull car has been terrible for years. You only have to go back 2 years, and they did a 1-2 in the WDC, and Sergio was second ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So it isn't. It's okay. As they come towards the end of the regs, and we've had convergence, and everyone else has caught up and gone past them, they've definitely struggled with that car, and Max isn't lighting it up this year either. But just this sweeping. Oh, no one can drive that car apart from Max. I'm like, you're professional drivers. Stop crying and beat some of the other cars around you. I don't buy into this. That Red Bull is so terrible for anybody called Max. You couldn't possibly beat anyone else on that circuit. It's just... the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't disagree that Max knows how to handle it and it suits his driving style better. Just feels like... Does everyone else just give up? Is it defeatism? It's like, well, it's too hard. Don't want to drive it. I'll wait until I get moved to a different seat. It's crap, as we would say in the UK. Anyway.
Let's talk about the casino games and how we did this week.
Yeah, let's definitely, because, I'm loving the casino games this week. So, roulette.
Oh, boy.
Pick who finished 7th. 7th was Fernando Alonso this week.
Have we ever hit one of these?
Yeah, I've hit 3 now, and you've never hit
3
one.
roulettes?
3 roulettes.
The reason I don't remember any of them is because I've never had one.
Correct. I picked Alonso. I nailed it. You picked Kimi, and Kimi didn't finish. So unlucky.
Did I pick Kimi Räikkönen or did I pick Kimi Antonelli? Because it doesn't matter. Neither one finished the race.
It doesn't matter. In blackjack, we both went bust with exactly the same score, bizarrely. I went for Lando, hoping he would finish second, and then Ulkenberg open for a couple of points, which did come true, but the Lando part didn't, so I went bust with 27 points. You picked Charles and Lewis, who got 27 points, so we both went bust in blackjack. 3-card poker, I had Oscar, Lando, and Max, so I had 2 in a row, but in the wrong order. You had Ollie Behrman, Colapinto, and Bortoletto, which they probably couldn't have been further apart by drivers if we tried to insert them. So unlucky. So I took home 2 hands this week, and you took nothing, which is fantastic.
I didn't even see Ollie Behrman in the race.
I don't think he did race. I don't think he was there.
He finished 11th, and I forgot where he finished.
To put a bow around Austria, that means we leave Austria with Oscar Piastri still of the driver's standings, but now only 15 points clear of Lando after his great weekend. Max now much further back.
46 points behind.
Yeah.
That's a lot of points.
It is. Well, 46 behind Lando, right? Let alone...
behind Lando. Sorry, I'm looking spot to spot.
Yep. And then George now creeping up on Max, with a 146 to Max's 155. Chuck Leclerc, 119. Lewis at 91. Kimi at 63. Alex at 42. Bestie at 23. And Hulkenberg clinging on at 10th with 22 points. And going to what Paul said in his review, right? Lewis can moan all he wants. Ferrari played the team game this week, and this is the result of it. McLaren keep surging further into the distance with 417. Ferrari jump up into second spot with 210, ahead of Mercedes because they only had George finishings. They're on 209. Red Bull had nothing today, so they're back on 162. Williams, despite not even playing this weekend, stay in 5th on 55. Racing Bulls catching them a little bit, 36. Haas 29, Aston Martin 28, Sauber 26, and Alpine bringing up the rear on 11.
So a couple things. First off, I love the fact that Racing Bulls are 6th with 36 points. Then it's within 10 points to Haas, Aston Martin, and Sauber. So it's quite, and Sauber now looking frisky, dare I say, somehow. Aston Martin, Haas, Racing Bulls, 4 teams in that we're not quite as good as Williams of the midfield. And they're all within, a couple good results of each other. I think that's phenomenal. 2, when we kind of figured the season out, I don't think either of us had Alpine being dead last by a country mile.
Nope.
And the only people in the Drivers' Championship who have not scored a point, the only zeros that are still on the board are Colapinto and Doohan. And so basically, seat number 2, Alpine, goose egg. And so I'm looking at that. I didn't see that coming, although we did talk a lot about them just using the exact same chassis as last year. And everybody's like, oh, it's fine. The aero's different. Everything's different. No, they stink.
Yeah, I mean...
And I love the gas man.
Yeah, I don't know if it's got much to do with that. I just think Colapinto just seems to be I don't know, just different driver to last year. Just doesn't seem to have it this year for whatever reason. And they seem to just suck real hard at the moment. And,
So let's talk quickly about fantasy. This was another week for me to forget. The Austrian Grand Prix, first place. Oh boy. Chris Azuzu from Team Kuki. 316 points. Well done. Well done. San Gaucho, Ossier's team, second. And then we run into some fantasy experts, Formula Fantasy Hub Rob, Yank the Mike Michael in third and fourth. A tie for fourth with Box 1 Patrick. Debisieski from Bartek. Lost my V-Carb. Kevin. Switched to Plan B. Michael Cronje. The noobs, Busan. I mean, the people who are always good are always good. Dahan, the Kurdish boy Dahan, rounding out the top 10. It was a disaster for me. I was 27th. I did get 251 points, so I wasn't all that far off people, but I had Piastri, I had George, I had McLaren. Racing Bulls did okay for me because of Lawson. Thank you, sir. Fernando, I had Bortoletto just for cost cap reasons, and that was good. But Carlos Sainz with the -20 for the DNS.
That's probably that alone is what made my 260 beat you by 9 points this week. So
Nice, good job. That's good. I'm falling apart fast here. After that time laying in the shade in Canada, paint me like one of your triple McLaren boys. It didn't work out for me.
right, okay, let's get on to previewing next week before we wrap this one up. So next week is Silverstone, the British Grand Prix.
The British guys sound very excited about that, by the way.
Well, because probably it's the world's best ever racetrack in the history of the world, and delivers the best races from the best countries. So I mean, it's just best all round, really, best. Anyway, the British Grand Prix started in 1950. In fact, the very first race was there because F1 was invented there, and it's British and it's amazing. And I'll stop now. I'm sorry. And it went back and forth between Silverstone, Brands Hatch. I'm not sorry, not at all. Between Silverstone, Brands Hatch, and Aintree. But since 1987, it's been 100% Silverstone. It's an old RAF base from the 40s that they threw a kind of Top Gear type track around it. It's a 3.661 mile lap with 18 corners, one of which is named Vale, which makes it the best corner on the F1 calendar all year.
Eau Rouge, Radion, no, Vale.
Well, I'm just waiting for you to find one that's called Sap, because I haven't seen it. So come back to me when you've got a corner named after you, Brian.
I'll do some Googling over here.
Yeah, Google all you like, fella. The one doesn't exist. Right, okay. Last year was a bit of a banger, and also helped out by good old British summer weather. Russell nailed pole and had a Mercedes 1-2 front row, and Lewis was second. And we had a dry race until lap 27 when the rain came down. And everyone went in for inters, and off we went. And there were some little adventures around in the wet conditions. And then it was one of those great races where it rains, and then it kind of goes, yeah, I'm done. You can dry now. And we got a drying track, and I think it was only like 12, 13 laps later that everyone's going, I think we're dry enough for slicks again now. Although, unfortunately, amongst all this, George retired from a water pressure issue. If you remember that one, he had water issues. Lewis and Norris went in onto softs. Max went onto hards, which at face value looked like really weird, but turned into the fact that the hards were the absolute rocket ship tyres and the softs weren't very good at all. Max dispatched Lando pretty quickly and then went on a mission to go and hunt down Lewis, and we just basically held our breath for, well, us British Lewis fans kind of held our breath for whatever felt like a millennia. But Lewis did it. Held on, took a win in front of the British fans. It was his first win for 100 years.
It was the first time anyone with over 300 Grand Prix to ever won a race.
Yes, it was. And put him further ahead in the history books. So in terms of repeat winners, that was his 9th win at Silverstone, head of 5-time winners Jim Clark and Alain Prost, 4-time winner Nigel Mansell, 3-time winners Brabham, Lauda, and Michael Schumacher, and then 2-time winners, like 100 of them, like loads of them, which include Fernando Alonso. So I think we got Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton as current repeat winners. No one else.
Max has only won once there?
I guess he must have only won once, because this list doesn't have anybody. This is only repeat winners. So
yeah.
Guess he's only won once.
Fascinating.
I mean, if you look at when Lewis has won, he can't have snuck another one in, because we've basically got, Lewis 2014, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 24. So it was hard for anyone else to really slot one in there. So
unless it was that weird 75th anniversary one or whatever. What happened in 2020 where there was the second one called?
Oh, yeah, there was a weird one, wasn't there? Where...
COVID. Anyway. Yeah,
Anyway, constructor-wise, Ferrari dominate. It is 18 wins for Ferrari, 14 for McLaren, 10 for Mercedes and Williams, 8 for Lotus, 4 for Red Bull. Yeah, 2023 is the only time they've got a recent win there. So I guess that was Max's, because all the others are probably Seb's.
Gotta be.
And
Seb.
then we got two for Cooper, Tyrrell, and Renault. Those legendary names of the sport. So yeah, I love this track. It just, I was looking at the notes when we previewed it in previous years. I always say it's going to be a banger, and then I always say that's probably going to be the curse that we're not going to have a good race. But then that's never come to fruition yet, which probably means it will next week. But looks like it's going to be wet again. We've got long-range forecast of 10 days or whatever it is, 7 days, saying most likely going to be moist. So yeah, I know I'm biased, but I love this track. I love this race. I love the racing it serves up. It's high speed corners. It's gonna rain. There's gonna be mistakes made in the wet. There's gonna be strategy calls by whatever team that suck, and there's gonna be things to talk about. So yeah, I can't wait. Inject
I
it into
can't
my
wait
veins.
So excited. I was there last year for Friday for FP1, FP2. Had a wonderful time. Got to see Pitlane Paul, and just had a blast showing my family around an F1 track. They all thought it was too much walking. So I said, boy, you suckers wouldn't enjoy Canada. But anyway, it was a wonderful time, and I can't wait to watch this. I do look forward to it. You are right. It is one of those tracks that needs to be on the calendar every year. We say that, and then they put Spa in a rotation, and I'm still smarting from that. But, I'll find a way to live. Rob, anything else before we close out a long episode, recapping one and previewing another?
No, all good.
Well, I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Can't wait to talk to you in 1 week's time when we recap the British Grand Prix. Be well, be safe. Goodbye, everybody. Some of these words are going to come out eventually. I don't know if they'll come out right.